Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden, and today we're going to be talking about 3 new varieties of vines that I'm going to be adding to my garden and some new trellises that I just found. Okay, so it is mid-November and it is chilly outside today. I know I'm not dressed like it looks like that way. I run hot anyway, so I usually am in short sleeves even when it's cold outside. And it has been overcast for days and days and days, but I kind of like it. We've been doing a lot of work and we've been working on the shade garden, which has been really, really great. But I've been kind of saving this project. I bought a lot of these plants maybe a month or so ago. I've been kind of saving this project to work on. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about vines within my garden. Now, I love vines. I think that they are romantic and fairy tale and very whimsical, and I think they are a very cool thing to have to your garden. I don't grow a lot of vines or climbing plants in my garden as of yet, but it is one of my major goals. So I wanted to add 3 new varieties to my garden. Now, I do want to start with these guys, these trellis right here, and I ended up getting these on Facebook Marketplace. I forgot what the price is, so I'll drop it down below, but it was an excellent price. They are about 6 feet tall because I'm 5'10", so they're taller than 6 feet. So they're probably 6'6", somewhere around there. I don't know. And so I got these trellis. They're really pretty. They kind of have like a recycled green glass like detailing in them. And what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to focus them on the back 3 planters. I have trellis in the back 3 planters, but they don't match and they're much smaller than these. So let's just go ahead and start with that, getting these new trellis in place and see how they look. So the current trellis that I have in here, they're nothing special. They're pretty just simple looking. I'm going to have to fight some rose thorns here. I do have clematis on these. So what I am going to have to do is very kind of gently pull off some of the clematis and remove it. The clematis were planted by bare root a couple of years ago, and it's only recently that they've really kind of got started going, and this was one of my motivations to go ahead and get these changed out for that reason, because I don't want these so far gone that I cannot easily remove them from the trellis. Okay, so I wanted to do these larger, bolder trellis that had more of a statement, and I needed 3 of them. So let's go ahead, get this placed in here. Yeah, that's really pretty. And then I'm going to go ahead and wrap the clematis back up the trellis. And I'm sure I probably damaged the clematis some, but it will regrow. He'll be all right. All right, that looks good. Let's do another one. Okay, I think that looks really nice. They almost look like church windows. And I definitely think they have more of a statement than the other ones. And I love that all 3 match. Now I ended up cutting this clematis all the way to the ground. This one I was able to weed back in, and I don't have a perennial vine over here. This vine all right here is Ruby Moon Hyacinth Bean. And so I just ripped at it because it's going to die. It's already died here and here. The reason it hasn't died here is because it has protection. It's a little bit warmer right there from the willow tree. But that looks really great. So let's go ahead and talk about the new vines I'm going to be adding to the garden. Okay, so all 3 of these vines are brand new to me. So if you have had experience with any of them, I would love if you would chime in with some advice in the comments. Let's start with this one first. This is a gold flame honeysuckle. I believe I picked this one up from Covington's. It is a semi-evergreen perennial, so it will retain some of its leaves, but not necessarily all. So gold flame honeysuckle, it's from Monrovia. It requires full to partial sun. It's a big attractor of hummingbee and has vibrant blooms, which is why I was attracted to it. You can see a little bit here, but I'll put some additional pictures up so you can see what it looks like. It is hardy in zones 4 to 9, so down to -30 degrees, and it reaches approximately 15 feet in length. It's described as excellent vine to cover a trellis, arbor, or fencing, can be pruned to form a dense shrub-like shape. Deep pink buds open to sweetly fragrant golden yellow flowers throughout the summer, semi-evergreen in milder climates, deciduous in colder areas. So, the point of this is to crawl over the shade garden. So actually, we've been working on the shade garden. I'll give you a little bit sneak peek and let's talk about where this vine's going to go. So as you can see, if you've been following my social media, you know that we've made some success on the front of the shade garden, and I will have a very detailed video coming out later. But basically, this honeysuckle is going to be over here in this corner right here. And the goal is to train it up this side and across the top of the arbor. Now, arbor entrance, I'm not sure really what to call it at this point. There will be trellis in between these. And so the idea is that this wall, which is where most of the sun comes into the shade garden, this area will block all of that sun or a significant portion of that sun. So I really want a fast grower. Like I said, something that's going to be semi-evergreen, something that's really going to provide some really great shade on the back end and some really vibrant, beautiful color. Now, I am not ready to plant this directly into the ground, so I'm just talking to you all about this plant today. I still need to finish up what's going on with this arbor before I get it planted in the ground. I have about 2 feet of space over here where this guy will go, and then we will train it as it grows during the spring. All right, so let's talk about the next few. My next few are pretty intense growers. This first one is a blue crown passion fruit vine. I've actually got a bloom going, but I'll put some additional photos up there so you can see what the blooms look like. I picked this up at North Haven Gardens. It was about $20, and the honeysuckle over here is $25. And this is definitely new to me. I love its kind of romantic qualities. It's only hardy, I believe it said zones like 9 to 11. I could be wrong. It's a pretty vigorous grower. It does produce fruit. The fruit are edible, but everybody says that they don't have a lot of taste. I'm not really growing it for fruit. I'm growing it for its overall look. It can go up to 20 feet. And is a pretty vigorous grower. I really like the look of the leaves, this kind of very open structure of the leaves, which is very different. This does take full sun to partial sun. Because it is so vigorous, I'm considering starting it in a container. Actually, I am going to start it in a container. And I'm actually going to start it in a container, and then I'm going to work it into one of my side gardens. I'll show you where I'm going to be doing that. But we are going to be planting this up today. And finally, I have a creeping fig. Now, I wanted to start a creeping fig for a while, and what actually sparked this whole journey was I was able to get this creeping fig for $1 at Tractor Supply. It was on clearance this summer, and it was in rough shape when I got it, and I've just been watering it and taking care of it, and it's been doing really, really good since I've done that. Now, creeping fig can be highly invasive plants, and so this is one of the ones that I'm not going to be planting this into the ground. It's not great for going up against structures like stucco and brick and things like that, because it can just like rip through that mortar and things like that. So that's something to consider along those lines. It does handle very well at the end of each season. You can pull it all the way down and chop it all the way back to like 12 inches above ground and let it restart each year, which is something I would like to do. I don't want to just let this go bonkers, bonkers, bonkers. That won't be a goal of mine. But if I can cut it back severely each season, that would be great. That's what I do with my Virginia creeper in the front. I have it growing up one of the posts in my along my front porch, and I cut it all the way back to the ground during the winter, and it is great. I mean, it's great, and it helps me to kind of keep the whole thing in check and keep it from getting out of control. I'm wanting to plant this guy on one of the back planters growing over one of my rounded trellis. The reason I want to do that is I typically plant a lot of annual vines back there, and I would really like some that are just perennial, and I don't have to start from scratch each year if I don't want to. This one is also evergreen, semi-evergreen, which would be great. I love its little sweet heart-shaped leaves. I love the idea of being able to trim some of this and add it into some of my flower arrangements. This is also really great, easy to propagate, and it can be utilized as an indoor plant. It's not a forever indoor plant. It only lasts a couple of years inside as it does outgrow its container. But I'm going to show you the area I'm going to be kind of aiming for with this. It does prefer full sun. It can take part sun. The area I'm going to be growing it in is an area where I don't usually plant much of anything over there. So I thought this might be a great opportunity to put this over there. It grows, it fills in. I don't have to stress or worry about why I never plant anything over there, and then we're good to go. So let's go ahead and look at that area for the creeping fig first. Okay, this is the area I want to put the creeping fig in. And I currently have a trailing purple lantana right here that I'm going to trim back some just so y'all can see a little bit of what's going on. Now, the lantana is an annual in my area. However, I have had a few local gardeners tell me that they've been able to overwinter their lantanas, which I'm super jealous that they've been able to do that. So I'm just going to cut this back a little bit so you can see a little bit more about what's going on. Now, these containers are basically like troughs for like watering animals, and I put them in several years ago. They've been great. They were cheap at the time. They're way more expensive now. I'm throwing in some compost right here. They're way more expensive now, but at the time they were really inexpensive. And I don't typically grow a lot in this particular container. I don't know why. I think there's a few bulbs in here, but I think that's pretty much it. I do see a few bulbs sticking out. I think they're gladiola bulbs in here, but that's pretty much it. So, and I've tried a couple of different things in here, so I thought, you know what, this is the time. We're going to go ahead and, you know, try something like that's real hardy, like the creeping fig, and hopefully it will do really, really well. So I'm just basically going to tuck it in at an angle like this. You guys see how it's got its existing bamboo stake in here, and I'm basically just going to do that and then hope that I can basically train this. And all of the information that I found has said that you can train this. You can train its shape to be kind of more slim and focused on being elongated climbing up the trellis, which I would really like to do. I also think it would be pretty spilling over the side a little bit. Right here I do have hypericum berries that are on their last leg. This is like their fourth year maybe. The struggle is real in them. They don't have very much alive anymore. So those might be getting dug up anyway this next year. So I think it'd be really pretty for the fig to just cascade over the side. All right. So there we go. Very easily got that tucked in. And that'll be really nice seeing this grow up and be consistently covered with green as opposed to being just bare metal the whole time. I have one larger container here. This one right here is going to be for the passion vine, the passion flower vine. Because I am looking at this being a more permanent situation, I just want a nice big large pot, really great drainage in there. It has 8 drainage holes, and I'm looking to be able to maneuver this around in some places if I want. Now, being that it's a climbing design or a climbing plant, I'm going to go ahead and install a trellis in this as well, because I want it to climb on the trellis within the pot, not on any additional structures or anything like that, because I am planning on moving it around. Once I find a place that I feel really comfortable with, I might plant it in the ground in the future, or I might allow it to, you know, permanently adhere to a different structure other than the one that is in the container. Now, some of y'all might be like, why don't you just put it right into the ground? It's because I'm indecisive and I don't know exactly where I want it to be or where it's going to do well in my area. And I've started doing this a lot with a lot of my plants, is putting them in a container, moving them around until I feel good about where their location is, and then planting them in the ground. I think that's cool. I also love the look of a garden that has pots and containers tucked into it. I think that just looks so beautiful and romantic and layered, and I just think that's a really cool look instead of everything being in the ground. That's just my personal taste. If you want, you can definitely plant yours directly into the ground. So this is a pot from Home Depot. They're currently on clearance. I think it was like $15 this large pot. I ended up buying 5 of them. It is plastic. I don't mind plastic. I know some people do. I don't mind plastic because I'm typically the one moving these around, and it's really hard to do the beautiful, like, heavy containers. It's really hard for me to move those around. So this makes my life a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and start with putting some compost at the bottom of the pot, and then backfilling it with my favorite soil, which is BM7, which is a soil from Homegrown in Farmersville. It's hands down my favorite soil. So got my compost going in the bottom. Then I'm going to add soil right on top. Jenny with Creekside always puts her compost in the bottom. So I thought that I'd give that a try. Basically, she says it makes her roots reach for the nutrients, which that makes sense in my head. We do have this like little bamboo structure in the passion vine. I'm going to go ahead and get this planted first, and then go ahead and add the trellis in. Yeah, this is beautiful. And they just get really large. So like, while I would love to put something like this, I don't think this is really big enough to handle what I need it to do. I have one that's a little bit larger. Let me go grab it. Okay, this is what I have. So I think what I need to do actually is let's pull this up, put the trellis in, and then plant. Oh, it's not going to fit. Darn it. Okay, so I bent the corners in. Here we go. And this is just an old trellis that I got from an estate sale. You know what? Let me just cut it. Yeah. There we go. There we go. I'm going to wrap this kind of low because this branch can be utilized by the plant to climb on this big branch here. That looks good. Let me show you where I'm going to put it. Okay, back over here. This is my zinnia, basil. All of this comes back from seed every year. Let me pull a few of these out. So I don't like looking at that. So my idea was to come in here and I want to install a couple of bricks first. And I'm not putting them directly on top of the soil. I'm kind of letting them, pushing them down into the soil a little bit. So I go ahead and pre-settle. But the idea is that we put that there and it kind of camouflages that. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that looks really good. And for those of you who've seen my garden, you know, like this area tends to be all about the same height. It has Dara, it has zinnias, it has basil, it has bulbs, it has a lot of different things in it. A lot of the flowers reseed themselves, the bulbs of course don't. But adding a little bit of height here, I think it's really pretty. If the vine ends up doing well here, I could leave it in the container, plant it in the ground. I could train it up throughout this area if I wanted. There are a lot of different options. But for now, trash man's here. But for now, having it in the container here allows me a certain level of control without letting the roots like spread like crazy, and without it kind of attaching to the wall and then deciding I don't want it here after all. Especially with something like a vine, I think this gives me just a while to kind of think about it. And who knows, I might just love it just like it is in this container with the trellis, and I can trim it back to whatever size I want and such. Maybe that ends up being what I love. But I really do think it added a nice amount of height over here and some interest that is needed in this portion of the garden. Okay, and then finally, the very last thing we're going to do is pot up the honeysuckle. Now you might be like, Amanda, that pot is too small. This is not the permanent situation for the honeysuckle. If you recall, the honeysuckle is going to be going over where the new shade entrance is. And with that idea, I'm not ready to plant it yet, but I will be in a few weeks. However, the container is so tiny that I don't think it's been really good for the container. So I want to go ahead and get it into a little bit more soil for the time being. I'm not going to put any compost in here right now. I'm just going to put straight garden soil for the time being. And then once I finish up the front of the shade garden, I will transfer this into the ground. Or who knows, maybe I'll put it in another pot, because now I'm intrigued by the whole look of the passion flower over there on the pot. But let's just go ahead and let's just go ahead and pot it up in this smaller container for now. Okay, that makes me feel good. And then this will have better water retention than what it's had in this tiny little pot. And it just makes me feel better that it's not suffering in that tiny little pot either. This can allow its roots to expand over the next few weeks. I will end up planting it out here. It has been outside the whole time, so it's been dealing with the on and off cold. And so I will end up planting it into the ground no matter what time of year, so that it's ready and established for the spring. Okay, that is good. I'm excited. The vines are something new, a new texture in the garden, and it's really going that direction of that whimsy and kind of fairy tale quality that I want to add to my garden. I want layers, lots of layers in the garden, and by incorporating these, taller trellis that I got, and then training vines to grow up over those, and then growing up over my cattle panel trellis, growing up over the front of the shade garden. I'm definitely excited. This is definitely the direction I want to go. I would love for my garden to look like a beautiful, established English cottage garden, but I live in Texas. So I have to make my own version of an English cottage garden. And I think that this will start taking me in the right direction. So I'm really, really excited. That was one of my huge goals for 2023, to add just a sense of whimsy and fun and fairy tale-like qualities to my garden. So this is a big step in that direction. So it's the shade garden. I've been really thinking a lot about my goals for 2024, and I'll be sharing a bunch of those with you in January, which will be really, really fun. But I still have a lot more videos before then. I got a lot of stuff going on. Christmas decorations are coming down this week. I love to decorate for Christmas. I love to incorporate a lot of vintage items, and I do love to incorporate plants. So that'll be really fun, and we'll be working on the Christmas porch, and I still have mums to plant. I have perennials to plant. I did plant all my seedlings, so that's exciting. Those are done. Finishing up the front of the shade garden. Then I have so many plants that are actually all over here in the front on the back porch that have to get moved into the shade garden. And yeah, we still have a lot of exciting times, even though it's starting to get colder. And I'm sweating, and it's 50-something degrees out here, and I'm sweating. We still have a lot more to do in the garden, and that's that's fine with me. I think in the past as a gardener, I've tried to wrap things up before the holidays, and now as a more seasoned gardener, I'm going to garden whenever I want to garden. And if I have projects and it's cold outside, well, then it's cold outside and I'm working on this project. So I think that's totally fine. But I hope you guys are starting to dream about next year. And I hope you guys have achieved a lot of your goals for 2023. If you've grown any of these vines, please give me some information about them. Give me your thoughts. Honest thoughts are fine. Just be a little nice, at least when you're presenting them. All right, y'all. As always, make sure you hit that subscribe. All right, you all, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when my latest videos are up. And be sure to check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.